Welcome back to my 100% playthrough of Dragon Age Origins. Today we're going to continue with the class guides. Last time I did the rogue, this time we're going to have a look at the warrior. So if I load up this game here, you will see I am with my human noble character, who is playing a sword and shield fighter. So let's have a quick look at what kind of skills the warrior has available to them. Okay, this particular character has two specializations, but we will look at those later. So you've got the warrior skills here. Now the warrior can specialize in any type of weapon, so you can be a dual weapon, an archer, weapon and shield, or two-handed. Dual weapon and archery are identical to the rogue's skills, so I won't cover them here. I talked about them when we looked at the rogue. So the only ones I'm going to look at are these two, and honestly, if you want to play dual weapon or archery, I recommend the rogue anyway. That class does have a lot of perks to recommend it, whereas warriors, I do prefer them as either weapon and shield or two-handed, but you have the option if you want it. You can play a warrior as an archer if you would like to. Okay, this particular character, as you can see, is a weapon and shield fighter, so we will look at those skills in a second. Let's start with the warrior skills. So this first skill tree starts with the skill Powerful, which is a really good passive skill. Through training and hard work, the warrior has gained greater health and reduced fatigue penalty for wearing armor. So that is just a bonus to health as well as lowered fatigue penalties. If we look at the armor, any armor that's not mage armor will have a fatigue penalty. You can see here that my massive armor, the Juggernaut plate, has a fatigue of 26.25, which is a lot because it is a piece of massive armor. However, that skill is actually decreasing that fatigue, so I'm not taking quite that level of fatigue from this piece of armor. So that's Powerful, just a useful skill for any warrior to grab, really. Next is Threaten. Now Threaten increases enemy hostility with each melee attack. It is a sustained skill, so you activate this, and then when you're just doing your basic attacks as a warrior, you'll be gaining more hostility than if you weren't using Threaten. This is great because warriors typically have more health and more armor than other classes, than rogues or mages. So it's usually better for the enemy to be attacking them, as they can take quite a bit more damage before going down, and Threaten will help protect the more fragile members of your party. Having said that, I don't often find the need for it, so I don't often use it. There are other skills the warrior has that I'd much prefer to be using as sustained skills, but it is certainly an option. Next is Bravery. So the warrior's unwavering courage grants bonuses to damage, physical resistance and mental resistance, as well as a bonus to critical chance that increases proportionally to the number of enemies above 2 that the warrior is engaging. This is another great passive skill. Bonuses to damage as well as physical and mental resistance are always welcome. And then the increased critical chance of you fighting multiple enemies, that'll often come up, so again, just a great passive skill to have. Not much more to say about it, but it is certainly a good skill to get. And then Death Blow is another passive. Each time the warrior fells an enemy, the end of the battle seems closer at hand, restoring a portion of the warrior's stamina. So another passive, and you understand what it does from the description there. It will restore part of my stamina each time I kill an enemy. So what I'm going to do is we'll put some of this into practice before we go talking on about the next skill tree. Since 3 of these are passives, they're a bit hard to show. I can at least try and show Death Blow, and we'll have a look at what Threaten does. I don't even have it on my skill bar though, because I haven't been using it. So let's do that. We'll activate Threaten, deactivate Shield Wall, which is the other one I've got there. Okay, so now we're using Threaten. So let's go and engage some enemies. Let's have a look at what we can do. Now I'm going to use some other skills just to get my stamina a bit lower, so we can hopefully see the Death Blow effect. But let's see how we go.
It is begun.
Okay, now if we watch my stamina, I'm at this level here. Let's see what happens when I kill something. Hopefully I get this kill and my allies don't take it from me. That would be nice. Okay, so one more hit, and there we go. I don't know if you saw that, but the stamina bar did just increase when I killed that enemy, and that is the effect you get from Death Blow here. So it is a really useful skill, just means that you can use your skills faster once you run out of stamina than you would otherwise be able to. As for Threaten, bit hard to show, but it should mean that the enemies are attacking me more than my allies, but it is really hard to actually show that effect since you can't see what the hostility stat is. Alright, now let's go on to our next skill tree here, the other one of the generic warrior skills. I'll be honest, I usually use this top one because I just really like all the passive skills. This bottom one, it still has some good skills in it, but they are mostly activated skills, so you've got to use them. Whereas these are just always active, so I much prefer this row. But anyway, Precise Striking. I don't believe I actually have these skills on any character, so unfortunately I won't be able to show them to you. But that should be okay, it shouldn't really be a big deal. Actually, let's see what Oghren has. Oghren comes with his own skills because you get him at such a high level if you do things in the general order I do, which involves going to Orzammar last, so I'm actually not sure what he takes. He doesn't like them either. Okay, that's fine. Alright, so let's have a look-see. Precise Striking. So this is a sustained skill, so much like Threaten, it is one that you activate and then it will be active, using up a portion of your stamina. The warrior tries to make each attack count, sacrificing attack speed for a bonus to attack, as well as increased chance to score critical hits for as long as this mode is active. Anything that lowers attack speed I'm not a big fan of. It might make up for it with the higher attack bonus and the increased critical chance, but I would rather be attacking more frequently as a general rule in this game. But it is there if you want it. So Taunt is interesting. We've already seen Threaten. Taunt works quite similar, but it's an activated skill, not a sustained one. So that means you hit the button and you'll suddenly gain a whole lot of hostility you didn't have before, unlike this one, which kind of just passively gains you more hostility as you fight, when it's active anyway. So Taunt, you just hit this and the enemies will typically stop whoever they're attacking and focus on you instead. So that could be in a lot of cases actually better than Threaten. As a kind of panic button if, like, say your mage is getting really heavily targeted, to bring those enemies back into attacking your warrior. So it really does give you some battlefield control, so I do think Taunt is actually a good talent to have. Disengage is interesting. It's basically the opposite of Taunt. Instead of gaining a whole lot of hostility, you reduce your hostility by quite a lot. It's another activated skill, so it does mean if your warrior is struggling, it's kind of like a panic button to get the enemies to stop attacking him and focus on other characters while he heals up or does whatever he needs to do. Typically not something I'd want to use just because I would rather they were attacking my warrior and be healing him before he gets to that situation, but still it is there if you want it. And then Perfect Striking. So the warrior focuses on precision, gaining a massive attack bonus for a moderate time. Perfect Striking is good. It doesn't last, it's an activated skill, so it's not sustained, so that massive attack bonus is for a short window of time. I'm not sure exactly how long it lasts, but it certainly is good to deal more damage for whatever window of time that is. So it is a good skill. I'm just not sure that it is worth the 4 points it takes to get to it, especially when I think 2 of these are honestly quite average. I would never use Precise Striking and probably not Disengage. So the only skills I like in this particular branch are Taunt, and Perfect Striking is good if you want to spend the talent points to get to it. But that's kind of why I never bother taking this path. I'd much rather take the passives up here. But, personal preference. They are the general warrior skills that all warriors have access to. But now let's look at the weapon specialization. So this character is a sword and shield, so we will use her as my sword and shield example. This is of course what Alistair starts the game specializing in. So if your character is not a warrior, then these would be Alistair's skills, probably, unless you've decided to change things on him and make him two-handed for some reason. And we'll talk about two-handed in a minute, but I do find it very strange that 2 of your companions specialize in two-handed, because you get both Sten and Oghren, who are two-handed specialists. But anyway, right, for Weapon and Shield. So Weapon and Shield is quite a defensive playstyle. It's honestly not one I play too much. I've learned quite a lot about it just playing this character, because it's not really a playstyle I've ever used before. Not seriously, or not in a very, very long time at least. So let's go through it. I'm going to probably mess up my playthrough here just by removing all these so we can see, so I can activate all these skills. Let's turn that off and get rid of that. Okay, so let's start with this top row here. We actually just saw one of them because I did use Shield Pummel on someone. Okay, so I've rearranged my hotbar here just to have the activated and sustained skills that Weapon and Shield offer. As you can see, there are 7 of them. Let's go through them one by one. So the very first one here is Shield Bash. This is a really good skill. Because it's an activated skill, and it works quite quickly. It doesn't have much of a wind up like some of the other Weapon and Shield skills do. The character shield bashes a target, dealing normal damage as well as knocking the target off its feet unless it passes a physical resistance check. Shield mastery doubles the strength bonus for this attack. That's the first thing to point out. A lot of the weapon and shield talents will be increased by this talent called shield mastery, which is this one here. So if you've got that, then you'll get that additional effect, which this character does, but that's okay. So shield bash, like it says, just knocks the target off its feet. So let's go target this Genlock, and I'll use shield bash on him. There we go, it just knocks him down. As you can see, happens very quickly. I believe the enemy needs to pass a strength check to resist the knockdown effect, but otherwise, very good, and mages and rogues will barely ever resist that attack. At least once your strength gets up a little bit. So yeah, just a general good skill. Now Shield Pummel was the one I used before, so we're going to have to wait for that to come off cooldown, but we can read it. So the character follows up an attack with 2 hits from the shield, dealing normal damage with each attack. If the target fails a physical resistance check, it is stunned. Shield Mastery doubles the character's strength bonus for each strike. So just a generally good attack. It does take a little bit to wind up, but on the plus side you're dealing damage while it winds up, so that's actually not necessarily a bad thing. Okay, it's just come off cooldown, so let's target this Genlock, and you'll see a character will hit 3 times, and on the 3rd strike, he will stun the target. Or at least that's what it's meant to happen. Let's see. 1, 2, okay, he killed. Let's go find a healthier target, shall we? Alright, let's try that again. So here's a full health Genlock. Let's see if we can get the stun effect. So 1, 2, 3. Yep, there he goes. So that was enough to actually kill him, but you saw he was actually stunned by that as well. So yeah, it does have a bit of wind-up time if you're just after the stun, but it is really good because it does deal damage while it is winding up, and as you saw there, that was enough to just kill a basic Genlock at my current level of strength. Okay, next is Overpower. The character lashes out with the shield 3 times. The first 2 hits inflict normal damage. The last strike is a critical hit if it connects, knocking the target down unless it passes a physical resistance check. Shield Mastery increases the damage. So this is another skill which does knock down the target, much like Shield Bash. But where Shield Bash was just 1 hit and then knock the target down, this does a couple of extra hits first. So it takes a little bit longer to get to that knockdown effect, but you do deal more damage with it. And that last strike is also a critical hit. So you are dealing more damage, just takes a little bit longer to get there. So here's Overpower, let's try it against this Genlock. So 1, 2, and then 3. Again, was enough to kill him, but I'm sure you get the idea with it. Okay. Alright, and then the final one in this first row of the weapon and shield, Assault. The character quickly strikes a target 4 times, but dealing reduced damage with each hit. If the character has shield mastery, the damage from each hit increases. So this is exactly what it sounds like. I'll be honest, Assault is not a skill I find myself using very often.
No other choice.
However, it does have some good things about it. So let's go find another enemy. There's some just here. Yep, perfect. Including a Genlock Emissary. That's fine. Don't care about him. As it says here, you just attack the target 4 times. Each will deal reduced damage, although with Shield Mastery the damage is increased. But what I do like about it, like, talking about what I like, it is, those 4 attacks do happen in quick succession, much faster than your normal basic attack would happen like that. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it just does some quick burst damage to the enemy. But what I don't like about it is most of the other weapon and shield talents will inflict stuns or knockdowns or have some other effect. Assault doesn't really have any of that, it is just quick burst damage. So I don't find it all that useful, but it's there if you need it, and I have used it during this playthrough, so it can be useful. Okay. So that's the top line of the weapon and shield skills. Some pretty good skills. There's a stun, 2 knockdowns, as well as assault for some quick burst damage. Now this middle one is basically a couple of passives, a couple of sustain skills. So the first sustain skill is Shield Defense. While this mode is active, the character drops into a defensive stance that favors the shield, giving a bonus to defense and an increased chance to shrug off missile attacks, but taking a penalty to attack. With Shield Balance, the attack penalty is reduced. With Shield Expertise, the defense bonus increases. With Shield Mastery, the defense bonus increases further. Right, so for a start, half of that was just talking about how other skills impact this particular skill. Basically, you increase defense, chance to shrug off missile attacks, so arrows, but your attack is reduced. This is kind of what the weapon and shield playstyle is all about, sacrificing a bit of attack to be tankier, increase your defense, take more hits. And this is exactly what shield defense does. I can show you, but it won't really show too much, but if I activate it, shield defense is active, so I now have increased defense, presumably. Yeah, so shield defense is now active. But I mean, you can't really see anything, it's just I'm taking slightly less damage from enemy attacks, basically, as well as dealing slightly less damage to them. So then we get to shield balance. So the character has learned to compensate for the weight of a shield in combat and no longer suffers an attack penalty while using shield defense. So this passive is, all it does is directly buff the shield defense sustain skill. So it simply means that shield defense will now just give you the defense bonus and you'll be dealing normal damage. Once you have shield balance, making shield defense a much better skill. Then we come to shield wall, which is another sustained skill. One thing to point out, I'm not really a fan of how the weapon and shield skills are laid out, because you need to go through shield defense to get to shield wall, but once you have shield wall, I'm tempted to stop running shield defense. Personal choice, but anyway. Shield wall. In this mode, the character's shield becomes nearly a fortress, adding a significant bonus to armor and a greater likelihood of shrugging off missile attacks, but at the cost of reduced damage. Shield expertise makes the character immune to direct knockdown attacks while in this mode, and shield mastery gives a bonus to defense. So yeah, the interesting thing, shield defense and shield wall are very similar. They basically do the same thing, shield wall just does it better. So this gives bonus to armor, so that's kind of like increasing defense, as well as a greater chance to shrug off missile attacks, which is exactly what shield wall did. That is exactly what shield defense did as well. And you also have the penalty to attack. Now you can get rid of that attack penalty with shield balance. So shield balance does actually not only affect shield defense, it also helps with shield wall, which is awesome. But between the two, shield wall is just basically the same thing but better. So I find it very strange that the warrior has both these talents, and as you can see, you can't even have both of them active at the same time. Activate one and the other will instantly deactivate. And then we come to shield expertise. The character's experience using a shield in combat has made certain abilities more efficient, increasing the defense bonus for shield defense and making the character immune to direct knockdown attacks while using shield wall. Yeah, so this does kind of change these two a little bit. It does make shield defense better at what it does, increases its defense further, but I think what it does for shield wall is far more valuable. Basically makes you immune to knockdown while shield wall is active. Knockdown being extremely common. A lot of the warrior type enemies will have some knockdown effect, so being immune to it makes your life a lot easier. It also means that mages, fireballs and that sort of thing won't be able to knock you down either. So with shield expertise, I do think shield wall is far superior than shield defense, even though they both basically do the same thing. Okay, that is the second row. And then down on the bottom we have a bunch of passives. There is one sustained skill as well actually, but most of them are passives. Shield block. Practice fighting with a shield improves the character's guard. Enemies can no longer flank the character on the shield carrying side. Basically makes it harder for rogues to backstab you, as far as I can tell. Backstab, of course, where the rogue deals increased damage if they hit your back. So shield block basically makes it a smaller target that the rogues have to hit to successfully backstab you. Shield cover. While in this mode, the warrior's shield provides a greater chance of deflecting missile attacks. Shield mastery increases this bonus further. Exactly what it says, like, this does give you a greater chance of avoiding arrows, basically. But as you saw, that shield wall and shield defense actually do the same thing, so I don't know why shield cover is here. Maybe it does it better, I don't know. But I'd much rather be running shield wall than shield cover. Then we get to shield tactics. The character is proficient enough with a shield to defend from all angles, so that attackers no longer benefit from flanking strikes. So this essentially takes what shield block was doing and makes it better. You're now immune to backstab entirely. Rogues cannot get bonus damage on you. And then finally, shield mastery. We've kind of heard this one already, but I'll read it out anyway. The character has mastered the use of the shield for both offense and defense, and receives additional benefits when using shield bash, shield pummel, assault, overpower, shield defense, shield wall, and shield cover. Yep, so shield mastery is kind of that skill that most of the talent trees have. I don't think two-handed does actually, but a lot of the trees have it. Here's Master Archer, there's Dual Weapon Mastery. It's that talent that increases the effectiveness of a bunch of the other talents in the specialization. So in this case we saw for Shield Bash, for example, that having Shield Mastery will double the strength bonus for this attack. And a lot of these other ones have similar effects when Shield Mastery is taken. So just a good talent to get for any weapon and shield fighter, of course. And that is the weapon and shield specialization. Rather interesting specialization, again not one I typically use. If I'm using a warrior I do prefer two-handed in general. But it is certainly a nice one to have, and I will admit playing this character has actually made me like it a lot more. Because whenever it's with Alistair I can't be bothered reading all the text here. And so I just end up giving him whatever, and it's probably not the best. Having read it, I do understand a lot more about how these skills interact. And kind of worked out my own opinions on what a good loadout looks like. Yeah. Perfect. Okay, now that we've looked at the weapon and shield playstyle, let's look at the other main warrior playstyle, which is the two-handed one. So I'm going to use Oghren here for this one, just because it is handy. He's here with my human noble. Now, as you can see, this particular Oghren hasn't taken quite all the skills. He is missing Destroyer, but that's a passive, so it's not something I can actually show you anyway, so we'll just talk about it when we get to it. But first, let's look at this first skill tree here. So it starts with Pommel Strike. Pommel Strike, really good. Pommel Strike is basically the two-handed warrior's version of Shield Bash. It is just a quick knockdown. Let's select a target, go Pommel Strike, and hit him. There you go, knocks him down. He can pass a physical resistance check to not be knocked down, but if he fails, then he will be knocked over. Okay, now Indomitable. I do personally think Indomitable is one of the best skills. It's one of the best sustained skills in the game, if I'm quite honest. And possibly why I quite like playing the two-handed characters is because they do get Indomitable. So what this does, this is a sustained skill, like I said. Through sheer force of will, the character remains in control on the battlefield, gaining a slight increase to attack damage while being immune to stun or knockdown effects for the duration of this mode. So it does increase attack damage, not by a lot, but a little bit, which is nice. It's not why I like this mode though. Being immune to stun or knockdown is amazing. Now we've already seen Weapon and Shield can be immune to knockdown with the upgraded Shield Wall. So Shield Wall plus Shield Expertise. But here we are with a tier 2 skill in the two-handed tree that makes you not only immune to knockdown but also immune to stuns. The amount of enemies that can either knock you down or stun you is a lot. Everything from a mage throwing a fireball, which will knock you down, to a rogue using dirty fighting to stun you. Warriors of course have skills to do both as well. So Indomitable is amazing. And it's always fun to watch the ogres charge at you, because they can't knock you over with their kind of ramming attack. They can still pick you up and do that attack, but they can't knock you over. Actually, there is an ogre. Let's see if we can trigger that to happen. So I'm going to activate Indomitable, and we'll see how we go. Possibly should be taking this more cautiously, but that's fine. This is not going to work, is it? Although you actually saw it there, when the ogre threw the boulder, Oghren resisted the knockdown effect. He's dead now, but he did resist it. Okay, let's reload that. Okay, back to Oghren. That is Indomitable. Like I say, probably the best sustained skill in the game, at least in my opinion. Stunning Blows is the first passive we're going to look at for the two-handed warrior. The character's fondness for massive two-handed weapons means that each character's attacks offers a chance to stun the opponent due to the sheer weight behind the blow. Just an awesome passive, giving all of your basic attacks a chance to stun. Absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. Not going to show it to you, it's just a stun, but it does mean that each of my basic strikes does have a chance to stun. So, pretty good. Okay, Critical Strike. The character makes a single massive swing at the target, gaining a bonus to attack. If the strike connects, it is an automatic critical hit, possibly killing the opponent outright if its health is low enough. Yeah, so Critical Strike, exactly what it says on the can, it's just going to be a massive attack against an enemy. Of course, if the enemy happens to be frozen or petrified, it will inflict the shattering effect, always a good thing, but there we go. And that was actually Stunning Blows as well, because I used Critical Strike, which did the critical hit, as you saw there, but the Genlock Alpha was actually also stunned. And as you can see, Critical Strike does not have a stunning effect, so he was stunned because of Stunning Blows, actually. So there we go, managed to show both of those in one attack. Awesome. Alright, so the next skill tree. The first skill here is Sunder Arms. The character attempts to hinder the target's ability to fight back, rather than going directly for a killing blow. Unless the target passes a physical resistance check, it suffers a penalty to attack for a short time. So let's have a look at this. There we go. Well, he kind of ran away, but you get the idea. I just attack an enemy. It actually does deal damage. As you can see, that Genlock is damaged. But the main reason to use it is just lower the foe's attack. Does, unfortunately, a physical resistance check will negate that attack drop. And usually this is best used against warriors, who are doing the most damage. So they do have a chance to actually resist its effects. But at least it does deal damage anyway, so it's not a completely wasted attack. I'll be honest, Sundered Arms, use it sometimes. I often forget about it though, especially once I unlock some of these other skills. Okay, Shattering Blows. This is a passive. The character is as adept at destruction as at death, and gains a large damage bonus against golems and other constructs. Yeah, so Shattering Blows is interesting because it's specifically good against golems. Now, honestly, I'm probably in the best place to do that because I'm doing the Anvil of the Void quest, where you do fight quite a few golems. Outside of this quest, golems are extremely rare, so although it's a nice passive to have, it's not one that'll actually come into play all that often. But still, you might as well grab it, and it does unlock these ones. But for the passive itself, it's okay, but nothing really special. Does make you good at killing golems though, which is nice. Sunder Armor. So we've had a look at Sunder Arms, this is now Sunder Armor. Basically does the same thing, except it reduces armor. So the character aims a destructive blow at the target's armor or natural defenses. The attack deals normal damage, but also damages the armor unless the target passes a physical resistance check. Yeah, so again, this does deal damage, so even if they resist its effects, it still is useful. There's Stunning Blows coming out again. But now that Hurlock there presumably has lowered armor. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. Now this is the one I don't have. It is a passive, Destroyer. Few can stand against the savage blows of a Destroyer. Every attack sunders the target's armor, reducing its effectiveness for a short time. The effects of multiple blows are not cumulative. So it is actually a good skill. I probably should get it on Ogryn at some point. I just wanted to unlock these. But it is actually a good skill. It essentially has this effect, except on your basic attack, so you don't need to use a skill to do it. But as you can see here, the effects are not cumulative, so that means that hitting an enemy once will reduce their armor, hitting them a second time will not reduce it further. But still, is a really good skill to have. Okay, looking at this last tree, there's a mixture of skills here, so we'll start with Mighty Blow. Mighty Blow is actually a really good skill. Okay, let's have a look. Basically, hit Mighty Blow and it'll do a lot of damage. Do that, there we go, 63 damage on the Hurlock there. If we read what it actually does, it's an activated skill. The character puts extra weight and effort behind a single strike, gaining a bonus to attack. If it hits, the blow deals critical damage and imposes a penalty to movement speed unless the target passes a physical resistance check. So what I do find really interesting, Mighty Blow is of course a good skill. A lot of warriors I believe actually might start with Mighty Blow. Either Pommelstruck or Mighty Blow, it's one of them they start with. But what I find interesting is, gives a bonus to attack, deals critical damage, and inflicts a penalty to movement speed. But then you look at Critical Strike, which is a lot further in the tree, so you would expect it to be a lot stronger, but it has a bonus to attack and deals a critical hit. It does have the extra effect of killing if the opponent is low enough on health, but I do actually wonder exactly how different these skills are, because they seem to do very similar things. But either way, Mighty Blow is a great skill to have. Powerful Swings is a sustained mode. While in this mode, the character puts extra muscle behind each swing, gaining a bonus to damage but suffering penalties to attack and defense. Two-handed Strength reduces the penalties to attack and defense. I do find this interesting because it has a penalty to attack but a bonus to damage, so I'm not exactly sure how those balance out and how much extra damage this actually does. Having said that, the Two-handed Strength talent, which I think is the next one it is, the Two-handed Strength talent does reduce those penalties, so it's still good. I don't tend to use Powerful Swings. With my two-handed fighters, I tend to just use Indomitable, and I don't even worry about Powerful Swings. It is the only other passive mode available to the two-handed fighter, at least without considering their warrior talents or specializations. So you could use it if you think you can spare the stamina. I'd rather just use Indomitable and have the rest of my stamina for active skills, but that is personal choice. But either way, Two-handed Strength, the characters learn to wield two-handed weapons more effectively, reducing the penalties to attack and defense from Powerful Swings. So this one is just a direct upgrade to Powerful Swings. and it certainly does make powerful swings more appealing. The last one, two-handed sweep. This is actually quite a good skill for the two-handed fighter, because you'll notice, like the weapon and shield fighter, all of these skills we've looked at so far are single target skills. Two-handed sweep is the exception. We'll read what it does and then have a quick look at it. So two-handed sweep. The character swings a two-handed weapon through enemies in a vicious arc, dealing normal damage to those it hits and knocking them down unless they pass a physical resistance check. Okay, we're surrounded by a couple of enemies here, so let's use two-handed sweep. It's of course better the more enemies you are actually in the middle of, but we'll show it with two. Okay. I believe my character actually killed this one, but you saw what it did. Basically just spins your weapon around you, knocking down all the enemies around you and dealing normal damage. Really good crowd control, and really the only one in these two weapon styles that we've looked at today. So I do really like two-handed sweep. It is great, especially at the start of the battle when you're surrounded by a ton of weak enemies. You can do a lot of damage with this if you run right into the middle of them. Okay, so those are the two fighting styles unique to the warrior. As I said, archery and dual weapon are certainly a thing, but rogues can do that too, so look at my rogue video for more information on those. Okay, so let's start going through the warrior specializations. Like all of the classes, they have 4 specializations. As you can see, this character has 2 of them, Champion and Templar. The other 2 are Reaver and Berserker. So let's start with the Champion skills. Alright, so the first in the Champion tree is Warcry. This is an activated skill. The Champion lets out a fearsome cry that gives nearby enemies a penalty to attack. With superiority, nearby enemies are also knocked down unless they pass a physical resistance check. Yeah, so in its base form, this is kind of useful. It does mean that the enemies who hear it do less damage for a short time. I find it much more useful once you have the superiority talent as well. And I'll show you what that does once we reach superiority. As this character has both, I can't really just show you the base form, but it doesn't change much visually. It just means your enemies don't get knocked down when you use it. And then you come to the sustain skill, Rally. Rally is actually a really good sustain skill in my opinion. So the Champion's presence inspires nearby allies, giving them bonuses to attack and defense while this mode is active. When coupled with Motivate, the attack bonus increases. Yep, so much like say the Bard specialization for the Rogue, the Rally sustain skill just makes your entire party better at what they do. Yeah, so Rally just increases attack and defense for your entire party, making the warriors and rogues deal more damage, and all of your party members take slightly less damage in return. It's a great sustain skill. Now these last 2 are passives, and essentially they both buff these first 2 skills. So these 2 skills are the bread and butter of the Champion, and these just make them better. So Motivate. The Champion inspires allies to attack with renewed vigor. The Rally talent now increases attack in addition to its defense bonus. So yeah, Motivate is a direct upgrade to Rally. It is interesting, I'm not entirely sure how they work because they do slightly contradict each other. Motivate implies that Rally just gives a defense bonus and then Motivate adds the attack bonus onto that, whereas the Rally talent suggests that this has an attack and defense bonus, but Motivate will increase the attack bonus further. However they work, just take them both anyway. You want to be giving your allies more attack regardless, so just take Motivate. And then we come to Superiority, which is a direct upgrade for Warcry. The Champion is so fearsome that Warcry now knocks down nearby opponents off their feet unless they pass a physical resistance check. Right, so I realise this has been a lot of me talking. Let's actually have a look at how they work. So if we activate Rally, you'll see this great orange circle appears around us, and any of our allies within the circle will be getting this bonus, the Rally bonus. So if we look at Win, she now has the Rally bonus, increasing her attack and defense. Okay, so that is the sustain skill. Once I have it, I typically just leave that on my warrior at all times. But now let's look at Warcry. Now Warcry is particularly good for the weapon and shield fighter, I think, and that is because one weakness with the weapon and shield fighter, they have no crowd control. All of their activated skills are single target skills, so they actually have nothing to hit multiple enemies. But the Warcry talent, once it has the superiority upgrade, will knock down everyone around you, giving the weapon and shield fighter that little bit more crowd control. Don't get me wrong, other fighting styles appreciate it too, but all of these do at least have their own ways to hit multiple targets, whereas weapon shield just doesn't. Anyway, let's have a look at how that works. Probably what you expect, but if I activate it, Warcry, and as you can see it knocked them both down. The Ogre, being the Ogre, resisted the knockdown effect because it's strong enough to, but it will still be affected by the lowered attack damage, at least for a short amount of time. So that is the champion specialization. Quite a good specialization for basically any warrior, but it does work particularly well with this weapon and shield fighter, in my opinion. Okay, moving on to Templar. Now, Templar's a specialization you probably will be familiar with because it's the one Alistair starts the game with. And so, the very first one there, Righteous Strike. Templars are enforcers, specifically chosen to control mages and slay abominations. Each of the Templar's melee hits against an enemy spellcaster drains its mana. Whereas Champion is kind of your team support specialization for a warrior, Templar is the one to deal with mages. And you can see this from the very first skill. Basically, this is a passive, but it means any of your basic attacks when you're attacking mages will not only drain their health, it'll also drain their mana, meaning they're less able to use spells. Just a great skill, although, I mean, I do focus mages, so I usually try and kill them before they have a chance to cast too many spells, but still, it does mean they can cast less spells. Next we come to Cleanse Area. This is an activated skill. The Templar purges the area of magic, removing all dispellable effects from those nearby, friendly fire possible. So you'll see I have it down here. If I cast it, do now, it just cleanses the area, and anyone who has any buffs will have those buffs removed. It does affect your allies as well as your enemies, so be careful if you've got some buffs active. Doesn't really matter with, say, I've still got Rally active, but that doesn't really matter because that's a sustain skill, so it's still ongoing. Okay, but that is Cleanse Area. Typically not that useful. It might be useful if you're fighting a few mages. So for example, in the Circle Tower mission, if you have Cleanse Area, it can help a bit. But outside of there, it's not really hugely useful. Mental Fortress, on the other hand, is a great skill. The Templars learn to focus on duty, gaining a large bonus to mental resistance. This is a passive that, just like it says, gives you a bonus to mental resistance. Warriors typically don't have a lot of mental resistance. You can see here this character's physical resistance is 73, their mental is 43, which is actually really high for a warrior, and that is because they have the Mental Fortress talent. If we look at Oghren, who is now dead, let's look at him this way. Oghren. You can see there his physical resistance is 35, and his mental resistance is only 12. Mental resistance is basically, I guess like the text there says, it is basically your character's chance to resist magical effects. Like physical resistance will stop you from being knocked down, having mental resistance will prevent things like being put to sleep by the sleep spell, or being affected by horror by the horror spell. Mental resistance is the stat that lets you resist those effects. So getting Mental Fortress here just really helps when you're fighting mages. Holy Smite is the other activated skill. So the Templar strikes out with Righteous Fire, inflicting spirit damage on the target and other nearby enemies. If the target is a spellcaster, it must pass a mental resistance check, or else lose mana and take additional spirit damage proportional to the mana lost. All affected enemies are stunned or knocked back unless they pass physical resistance checks. Holy Smite is actually a really good skill. Yes, we'll use it here. You can see it's got a area of effect there. Let's do that. Holy Smite, there we go. So Holy Smite is doing a lot of things all at once. Firstly, it deals spirit damage. So it deals direct damage to the enemies, using the spirit type damage. Then if the target's a spellcaster, so essentially if they have mana as opposed to stamina, then they have to pass a mental resistance check, or else they will lose mana and take extra spirit damage based on how much mana they lost. And finally, all affected enemies are stunned or knocked back unless they pass physical resistance checks. So as you saw there, we stunned this enemy, we knocked that one down. There weren't any magic users in the area, so I can't really show you that, but you still get the idea. It does a lot of things and it does them really well. So that is just a great skill for, honestly, any character to have. Okay, alright, let's move on to the other two specializations, for which I'm going to have to change characters, so give me a second. Okay, here I am with Oghren. So on this particular playthrough, Oghren does have all his Berserker skills unlocked. I believe at the level I got him, he actually already had these unlocked, because he does start with the Berserk specialization already. So the very first skill is Berserk. The stench of blood and death drives the Berserker into a willing fury, providing a bonus to damage. Rages incur a penalty to stamina regeneration, however. Which constraint reduces? Resilience adds a bonus to health regeneration in this mode. Okay, don't worry about the last few sentences, they are some upgrades we'll look at in a second, but the basic skill just increases your damage, but lowers your stamina regeneration. Honestly, stamina regeneration, not the worst thing to be losing out on. It does mean you'll be able to use up your stamina bar, but once it's used up in a fight, you're not really going to be getting much back. At least unless you have something like Death Blow, which certainly does help with that. You've probably seen a lot of enemies actually use Berserk. I think a lot of the Genlocks have the Berserker specialization and will use Berserk. But that's basically what it does. It's just a useful sustained skill that increases your damage. Now, Resilience and Constraint are the next two skills. Both these are passives and both directly buff Berserk. So let's have a look. Resilience. The Berserker can now focus the power of Rage more effectively, gaining a bonus to health regeneration while Berserk is active, as well as a bonus to nature resistance that applies at all times. The nature resistance is nice. I do find nature damage doesn't come up all that often, but it is a permanent bonus to nature even without having Berserk active, which is nice. However, the other effect here is you do get a bonus to health regeneration while you are in Berserk mode. That is nice, and it can mean that your warrior has a little bit more sustain than they would otherwise have without Resilience. Then Constraint. The Berserkers learn to retain control during rages, reducing Berserk's penalty to stamina regeneration. So Constraint directly negates the penalty to using Berserk, which is lowered stamina regeneration. I don't think it completely negates it, but it certainly reduces it, letting you use more skills while you're in Berserk mode, basically. Okay, so those two passives directly upgrade Berserk. Now the last one here is the only activated skill that a Berserker gets access to. So Final Blow. All the Berserker's stamina goes into a single swing. If the blow connects, the attack inflicts extra damage proportional to the amount of mana lost. Okay, so this is kind of an all or nothing attack. I will try use it with Oghren, if I can. So let's go into Berserk mode. Okay, so there's the first thing you need to know. These two here are the skills. You saw I went into Berserk mode, which actually means that Final Blow can now be used. So Final Blow can only be used if you're in Berserk mode, which is something that it doesn't actually say here, but it's, as you saw on the cooldown bar, if you get out of Berserk mode, you can no longer use this skill. Okay, so here I am in the fight. I've just gone into Berserk mode. So yeah, if we have a look at Final Blow, like I said, it's basically an all or nothing attack. You will use up all of your stamina using this skill, but the amount of damage you inflict depends on how much stamina you lost. So the higher your stamina is when you use it, the more damage this will do. So let's see what it does when I'm at basically full stamina here. Let us go there, use Final Blow. There we go, 182 damage. Wasn't actually quite enough to kill him, but it was certainly close. So yeah, it can do a lot of damage, but as you can see, I now have no stamina. It'll slowly regenerate, but don't forget that when you're in Berserk mode, your stamina regeneration is decreased. Although again, unsure exactly how much Constraint helps with that. But there we go, and that is kind of the Berserker specialization. Now the last specialization I have got Oghren to take, it's Reaver, but as you can see he hasn't gone around putting any skill points in it, so I'm going to swap to another playthrough so you can see what the Reaver skills do. The last warrior specialization is Reaver, so here I am with Durin, who is my Dwarf Noble character, and as you can see he's specialized in Berserker and Reaver, so we'll use him to have a look at the Reaver skills. So the first one is Devour. This is an activated skill. The Reaver revels in death, absorbing the lingering energy of all nearby corpses, each of which partially restore the Reaver's own health. It's basically what it says on the...
Nobody goes in the room by a
what it basically says on the description. We'll see if I can show you in this room. Now I have removed my party members just because this was the quickest fight I could find to where this character was when I loaded the game. But we will see if I can show you how this works. So let me just probably skip forward until I kill one of these guys. Okay, as you can see I've killed two of the guards. I'm at extremely low health, so let's see how this goes when I use Devour. There we go, you can see I used Devour and gained a little bit of HP back. There were only two corpses. If you just killed a whole bunch of low level enemies that would get you quite a bit. But per corpse it gets you a relatively small amount of health back. And as you'll see, the Reaver's whole thing is about managing that health bar. But it is actually interesting as I believe Devour is the only healing skill that a non-mage has access to. I think it's the only one for any warrior or rogue skill or specialization. But as you can see, it's a relatively small amount per corpse nearby. Okay, the next one, Frightening Appearances. This is an activated skill. This talent focuses the Reaver's unsettling countenance into a weapon, making the target cower in fear unless it passes a mental resistance check. Frightening Appearance also increases the effectiveness of Taunt and Threaten. Now we have already looked at Taunt and Threaten, that's these two skills here. I actually believe Frightening Appearance is bugged with its interaction with Taunt. I don't think it actually increases the effect despite what the game says. Please feel free to correct me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Not sure if it works with Threaten, I guess we can assume it does, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Okay, well let's see if I can do it without dying. I might just take a potion. Okay, let's see if we can affect one of these guys. Frightening Appearance, and there we go. It's basically the horror effect that mages can use with their spells, except that the warrior can also do it, or at least if they are a reaver they can, using Frightening Appearance. Kind of useful, take one enemy out of the battle for a little while, but at the same time, I mean most warriors have access to so many stuns and knockdowns that you don't really need Frightening Appearance if I'm perfectly honest. One good thing about it though is that it does require a mental resistance check. Most of the warrior skills require physical resistance checks to resist. This one requires mental, so it actually might be more useful against warriors, which typically have a lower mental resistance. Okay, next we have Aura of Pain. So this is the sustain skill, one of two sustain skills actually for a Reaver. So Aura of Pain, radiating an aura of psychic pain. The Reaver takes constant spirit damage while this mode is active, as do all enemies nearby. This is kind of what I was talking about with the Reaver, where they're kind of managing their health bar. Like, you know, using Devour to increase your health. Aura of Pain is going to decrease their health over time, so you don't want to leave the skill active all the time, but let's activate it here and see what it does. Aura of Pain, and you can see that they are all taking constant spirit damage, but so am I, so you don't want to leave that active for too long. I'll be honest, not a skill I like, because hurting yourself is never a playstyle I enjoy. Certainly could be possible, and if you have plenty of potions, I mean just spam potions. While you've got Aura of Pain active, it's not like it drops your health bar to 0 automatically. It does do it slowly over time, so you have time to use potions if you want. It's an option, like I say, not my favourite option, but it is there. And that just leaves the other sustained skill, Blood Frenzy. Driven by pain, the Reaver gains larger bonuses to damage whenever health decreases. Because this mode also incurs a penalty to health regeneration, the Reaver flirts with death, the longer the frenzy persists. Now, this one is an interesting skill. I actually quite like it. We'll activate it, and you won't really be able to see the effects, but essentially each time I take damage, I'll get an increased attack bonus. Or increased bonus to damage, I should say. The downside, of course, is that it also reduces your health regeneration, but honestly, it's not a big deal, because if you're in the middle of a fight, you're not going to be relying on health regeneration. You're going to be using potions or having your mage heal you. And if you're out of a fight, your regeneration occurs so much faster, and you can honestly just wait for, 10-20 seconds until your health bar refills. So honestly, I don't think a lowered health regeneration is that big of a deal, so Blood Frenzy is certainly a good skill if you want it. Overall, Reaver is not one of my favourite specializations. Devour is kind of cool, Frightening Appearance has its uses, Aura of Pain and Blood Frenzy are interesting, but I would much prefer some of the other ones like Berserker or Champion, if I'm honest. Or Templar as well, actually. I would say Reaver is probably, in my opinion, the weakest of the warrior specializations. Although that may come down to personal preference. But anyway, that is all 4 of the warrior specializations. But before we end this video, there's actually one more thing I want to have a look at. So let me get out of here, and we will try something else. Okay, so here we are on the same fight. The difference here is that I have Shale and the dog with me. Shale and the dog are of course characters that you can control, and you can choose what skills they get as they level up. Both of them have very different skills compared to any of the main classes, warrior, mage or rogue, so I thought it was worth taking the time to actually look at their skills, and I thought I'd do it in the warrior video. It makes sense for Shale, because if you look at his class, he actually is a warrior. The dog is not, I don't think. Nope, the dog has its own class of war dog, but the dog actually plays very similar to a warrior as well, so I thought I'd look at them here. Now Shale is very interesting, and if you don't take the time to look at his skills, chances are you are playing him completely wrong. Because his skills are really interesting. Firstly, he has the warrior's talents that all warriors get. We have already looked at these, so I'm not going to go over them here. So let's look at the Shale specific skills. So first, Pulverizing Blows. So Pulverizing Blows is a sustained skill. Now the way Shale works is that he actually has 4 modes he can activate using sustained skills. So you've got Pulverizing Blows as the first one, Stoneheart, Rock Mastery, and Stone Aura. All of them play extremely differently, and it may be up to you which one you like the most. But you need to have the correct mode active to use any of his other skills. So you need to have Pulverizing Blows active before you can use Slam or Quake or Killing Blow. Same is true for these other ones. So starting with this first tree, Pulverizing Blows, what does it do? So Shale activates a mode that allows offensive talents, taking a penalty to defense in exchange for a bonus to damage. And then you can see there that for each of these specific skills, Shale gets a different bonus depending on what he's using. So with Slam, bonus to damage, with Quake, bonus to armor penetration, and Killing Blow, an even greater bonus to damage. So let's have a look at these other skills, but in essence, Pulverizing Blow lets you use these 3 skills, and it also gives you extra damage, in exchange for less defense. So first one, Slam. Now I will say Slam and Quake actually are probably quite familiar to you, because when you run around as a golem in the Circle Tower quest, you actually get these skills, both Slam and Quake, as well as Hurl Rock, which Shale gets access to all of them. And these, I believe, work very similar. Yeah, I believe these work in a very similar way to the Golem. There are minor differences for some of them though, so they're not exactly the same. But anyway, Slam. Shale slams a stony fist into an enemy target. If the blow connects, it generates an automatic critical hit and knocks the target back. After learning this talent, Shale gains an additional bonus to damage whenever Pulverizing Blows is active. Perfect. So yeah, like it says, it just deals massive damage to a single target. And then once you have it, it basically acts as an upgrade for Pulverizing Blows as well. Quake. Shale strikes the ground repeatedly, sending out multiple shockwaves that damage all nearby enemies and knock them back. After learning this talent, Shale gains a bonus to armor penetration whenever Pulverizing Blows is active. Yeah, I think the Golem one, if I remember correctly, stuns the enemies around him. This one here knocks them back. So it is a little different, not quite as strong as the one you were using in the Mage Tower, but very similar. It's kind of that area of effect sort of skill. And then Killing Blow. Shale concentrates all remaining energy into one tremendous blow. If the attack connects, it is an automatic critical hit, but Shale's remaining stamina is drained and added to the attack's damage. After learning this talent, Shale gains an even greater bonus to damage whenever Pulverizing Blows is active. Now this Killing Blow here is actually very similar to the one we looked at before, Final Blow, that the Berserker gets access to. It essentially consumes all of his stamina, but deals damage proportional to the amount of stamina you lose. So let's have a look at these skills in action. So first we need to activate Pulverizing Blows. There we go. And I need to put, oh no, Killing Blows there, good. Okay, cool, there we go. So here are the 3 skills. So we'll use Slam. Let us hit the soldier here with Slam. There we go. A lot of damage, pushes him back. Awesome, okay. And then Quake. There we go, hit that, and as you can see, it deals damage to everyone around you. It didn't really knock anyone back that time, but that's okay. And finally, we will use Killing Blow. Shale has used some of his stamina, but this should still do good damage. There we go, did a lot of damage, and Shale now has no stamina. I'll be honest, I usually just leave him in Pulverizing Blows mode. Once you have all these skills unlocked, just remaining in Pulverizing Blows mode does give Shale great bonus attack and armor penetration on his basic attacks. As well as these skills are some of the best, just because I do like the offensive nature of them. However, that's not the only way Shale can play. So let's have a look at the next row. So here we have Stoneheart, Bellow, Stone Roar, and Regenerating Burst. So Stoneheart. Shale activates a mode that allows defensive talents and gains bonuses to armor and elemental resistances. All nearby enemies become more likely to target Shale. Yeah, so Stoneheart and the skills that it depends on is basically the defensive version. So Pulverizing Blows is offense, Stoneheart is defense. Let's have a look. So Bellow. Shale erupts with the sound of the rock itself, stunning nearby enemies unless they pass a mental resistance check. After learning this talent, nearby enemies are even more likely to choose Shale as a target whenever Stoneheart is active, and the bonus in that mode increases. Yeah, so Bellow, this second thing here is basically a taunt sort of effect, or a threaten effect, I guess, since it activates on the passive. As for the rest of this, it is a stun, so let's have a look at that. Okay, so here we are. Shale is currently in Stoneheart mode, so let's have a look at Bellow. So, Bellow is an AoE stun, so it should stun everyone around us. Let's have a look. Bellow, and there we go, we got a couple of stuns. Not everyone was affected, I think the captain there did pass the mental resistance check, but still, it stunned a couple of the guards there. Perfect. Next, Stone Roar. Shale attracts the attention of a single targeted enemy who now views Shale as the most urgent threat on the battlefield, although the enemy may re-engage other party members if they attack it. After learning this talent, Shale gains a bonus to health regeneration whenever Stoneheart is active, while increasing the existing bonuses of that mode. Perfect, so Bellow is essentially like Threaten. So let's target someone who is not attacking us. Okay, so let's target the soldier who is currently attacking my main character. And we will target them with Stone Roar, so this should mean they disengage from my main character and run and attack me instead. Let's do that there. And as you can see, it took a minute, but they did run over and start attacking me. Okay, perfect. And then the last one here, Regenerating Burst. Shale explodes with energy, damaging all nearby enemies who are also stunned unless they pass a physical resistance check, in which case they are merely knocked back. After learning this talent, Shale gains a bonus to stamina regeneration whenever Stoneheart is active. The other bonuses of that mode increase, and nearby enemies are even more likely to choose Shale as their target. So as usual, it's just buffing the effects of the Stoneheart sustain skill. But aside from that, it is basically a stun, and the good thing about this particular stun is if they do pass the physical resistance check, they are still knocked back, which is still kind of useful. Okay, so let's try using Regenerating Burst. There we go, as you can see it stunned everyone around me. No one actually passed the resistance check there, so no one was knocked back, but if they had, then they would have been knocked back. So just a really useful skill, but as you can see, the Stoneheart mode is very defensive. It inflicts stuns, it knockbacks, and increases health regeneration and Shale's resistances, but also does make enemies more likely to target Shale, which is useful because again it is the defensive mode. Enemies will be targeting Shale instead of targeting the more vulnerable members of the party. But okay, let's go on to Rock Mastery. So we've had offense and defense, so what is Rock Mastery? So Shale activates a mode that allows ranged attack talents, gaining a large bonus against missile attacks, but suffering penalties to defense, armor, and melee critical chance. Nearby party members also gain bonuses to ranged critical chance and ranged attack speed. And then as you can see, depending on what talents you have, you do get other bonuses. Now this is a really interesting one. So as it says there, this is basically you turn Shale from a melee tank into a ranged fighter. And interesting, he also buffs other archers in the party. So if you are running him with, say, a rogue with the archery weapon style, then that rogue will actually get buffed as well by Shale being nearby with Rock Mastery. So let's have a look at the other talents in Rock Mastery. So we've got Hurl Rock. Shale pulls a rock from the ground, hurls it at a target. All creatures near the point of impact take physical damage and are knocked down unless they pass a physical resistance check. Friendly fire is possible. After Shale has learned this talent, party members who are nearby whenever Shale has Rock Mastery active receive additional bonuses to ranged critical chance and ranged attack speed. Second part fairly obvious, but it is nice that you do get that wee party buff. Again, only really matters if you've got someone using bows or crossbows, but still, it is nice to have that. As for the rest of this works exactly the same as the Golem did, I believe. So let us run over here, activate Rock Mastery, okay, and hurl a rock at people. There we go. Does a lot of damage, knocks everyone down. Do be careful with this because it does hit your allies. The only reason that my character here, Durin, wasn't knocked down is because Durin currently has Indomitable active, I'm pretty sure. Yep, that one there. But anyway, Hurl Rock. It's a really good skill. Next, Earthen Grasp. Shale pounds the earth, immobilizing enemies unless they pass a physical resistance check. After learning this talent, Shale receives a greater bonus against missile attacks whenever Rock Mastery is active, and enemies will be more likely to seek other targets. So this is interesting, it kind of has a disengage effect here. If you're using Shale in this way, he is ranged, so you probably don't want people targeting him quite as much, so that is an interesting effect. And the bonus against missile damage is certainly nice to have, not essential by any stretch of the imagination, but nice. But let's have a look at what this does. So if I come down here, replace that. I'm going to wait till these guys get back up, and then I'll use it. Okay, so Earthen Grasp. Oh, you can select the area, okay. As you can see there, I think that just petrified everyone actually. Okay, so that is Earthen Grasp. Really useful skill to be quite honest. And then Rock Barrage. So, Shale tosses up multiple rocks that crash down in the targeted area. Creatures within the area take damage, suffer penalties to movement speed, and are knocked down unless they pass a physical resistance check. Friendly fire is possible. After Shale has learned this talent, party members who are nearby whenever Shale has Rock Mastery active receive greater bonuses to ranged critical chance and ranged attack speed, again buffing any archers in your party. Okay, so here we are in the fight again. Let us see what Rock Barrage does. As you can see, it's a really large area of effect. Maybe we'll move Shale out of it. He's still in it, but that's okay. I wonder if it's not working because we're inside, which would kind of make sense given what he's doing. But, okay, Rock Barrage is not activating. That unfortunately means I'd need to find another place to show it off, and honestly, I can't be bothered. But that's okay, you should still get an idea of what it does just based on the description here. Really useful attack, but do be aware it will affect any other party members caught up in it. Okay, now this last mode is actually the one I find the most interesting. Not one I ever use myself, but it is certainly interesting. And this is Stone Aura. Shale activates support mode that imbues nearby party members with bonuses to attack, defense, and health regeneration. With other talents in the chain, Shale gains bonuses to armor and to resist hostile spells, and party members gain bonuses to most statistics. However, the aura paralyzes Shale and imposes a personal penalty to defense, as well as draining stamina. With renewed assault, nearby enemies suffer penalties to attack, defense, and movement speed. So we've got attack, defense, ranged mode, and now we've got kind of the support mode, which is Stone Aura. Now, unlike the other modes, these three here are actually passive skills. So all you need to do is activate this, and any of those passives will come into play. So let's just do it. And you can see here, I can't move Shale. He's just got this blue sphere around him, and all my party members within this blue sphere will be receiving the bonuses from these passive skills. So let's have a look at those. But before we do, you can see here my main character has the Stone Aura effect active there. So yeah, while this is happening, Shale can't actually do anything else. He is just acting as support for the party, increasing their effectiveness at the cost of not being able to attack anyone himself. I do believe it also drains his stamina, maybe? Yeah, as you can see, his stamina is slowly going down. So stay in Stone Aura long enough and he will run out of stamina and be unable to keep the mode going. First, passive. Inner reserves. Whenever Stone Aura is active, Shale gains a bonus to armor. Party members within the aura receive additional bonuses to armor, health regeneration, stamina regeneration, and spell power. Just a great defensive bonus. Well, I say defensive. I mean, armor and health regeneration are certainly defensive bonuses for the party, but stamina regeneration means your warriors and rogues can use their skills more often, and spell power actually makes the mage's spells stronger. A good mix there. It's an interesting passive for sure. Next, we've got Renewed Assault. So whenever Stone Aura is active, Shale gains additional bonuses to armor and to resist hostile spells. Party members within the aura gain additional bonuses to attack, stamina regeneration, critical chance, and armor penetration. Enemies who enter the aura suffer penalties to movement speed, attack, and defense. So yeah, Renewed Assault is really where this mode gets really interesting. So the party members. I mean, the bonuses to Shale are nice, it just means that he's not going to die while he's standing here, basically. But it's really the party members of why you're using this in the first place, so let's focus on them. So the party members gain a bonus to attack, stamina regen, critical chance, armor penetration. Basically everything your warriors and rogues need to do more damage. Doesn't really help your mages any, but that's okay. They were buffed by the spell power of Inner Reserves. It is also interesting, this one actually not only buffs your allies, it also debuffs your enemies. So enemies in the aura suffer penalties to movement speed, attack and defense. So the enemies get weaker, your allies get stronger. Just a great passive there. And finally, Supernatural Resilience. Whenever Stone Aura is active, Shale gains additional bonuses to armor and to resist hostile spells. Party members within the aura gain additional bonuses to health regeneration, spell power, damage, and to resist hostile magic. All really good effects. These three here, some of the other passives did that as well. This of course just improves the bonuses. But what's really interesting is this additional one of resisting hostile magic. Does make mages slightly less scary if you want to try and use Supernatural Resilience to kind of counter the enemy mages. But as you can see, Shale is a really interesting character with a lot that he can do. I will be honest, I always kind of just used to leave him with the default skills and let him do whatever he wants. That is, to be honest, the worst thing you can do with Shale. What you need to do is be making use of these modes, deciding which modes you like the most. I will say I tend to stick with Pulverizing Blows, but I do quite like Rock Mastery as well. But Support mode is interesting, and you've got the Defensive Tank if you want it there as well. But yeah, you've really got to be making use of the modes to get anything out of Shale at all. If you just leave him with the defaults, which I think is to use Threaten, and he won't even be using any of these modes, which means he can't use any of these skills. So you really do need to be checking his tactics and changing them up to make Shale an actually good character. Because he can be a very strong character, but you need to be using him correctly. Okay, that is Shale. How about the dog? On the plus side, the dog does not have that many skills, so it won't take us that long to go over the dog. He does have a mixture of activated and passive skills. I actually don't think he has any sustained skills. I guess we'll find out though. So his very first skill, Growl. The Mabari growls so fearsomely that its opponents suffer penalties to defense unless it passes a mental resistance check. So that is a pretty straight interaction. I can't really show it to you either, I don't think. But yeah, you just growl, it's on cooldown. You just growl and he will lower the enemy's defense, which means everyone's doing more damage to their enemy, while their defense is lowered of course. Dread Howl. The Mabari lets out a loud howl, stunning most nearby enemies. Now this one is a really good skill. You've probably seen wolf type enemies do this before, because they have the same skill, but you can Dread Howl. There we go, and he's stunned. It affects everyone around, it's just the other enemies were already dead, so I couldn't really show it on multiple enemies. But it is basically just a stun, it stuns everyone around you. Great skill. What have we got next? Combat training. So this is the first passive. The Mabari has undergone rigorous combat training, giving it bonuses to critical chance, attack, and armor. Honestly, just makes the Mabari better. Does more damage, takes less damage in return. Awesome. Overwhelm. The Mabari leaps upon its target, pinning it to the ground and attacks it repeatedly. Now this is the skill you've almost certainly had used against you, and you would have hated it whenever it was used against you. So Overwhelm is this one where they do this. So they attack and just kind of ravage you while you're on the ground unable to do anything. Really good skill, and it's nice to be able to use it against the enemies for a change. This is the skill that the spiders always use against you, and the wolves use against you. I think there are a few other enemies that can do it too. Always really annoying, but the dog can actually do it to your enemies, which is nice. Fortitude. So Fortitude is a passive. The ordeals of the road have increased the Mabari's tolerance for the elements. It gains bonuses to fire resistance, cold resistance, and electricity resistances. Not something that'll come into play too much, but it does make it slightly better against enemy mages in particular. Okay, Charge. The Mabari charges at its enemy, dealing normal damage if the attack hits and knocking the opponent down unless it passes a physical resistance check. Basically what it sounds like, it's just a knockdown skill. Let's see what it does. There we go, knocks him down. Nice and quick, does a little bit of damage as well. It is a really good skill. It's a bit like the Weapon and Shield Fighter's Shield Bash. It does exactly the same thing. Shred. The dog lunges at its opponent and tears at it with powerful jaws. If the attack hits, it is an automatic critical hit. If the target can bleed, it takes additional damage for a short time. Yep, so Shred deals damage, but it also deals damage over time. So let's use it here. You can see here now that the soldier is bleeding, so it was dealing a little bit more damage than it otherwise would. Only that extra effect, of course, only works against enemies that can bleed. I believe Undead can't bleed, Golems can't bleed, there's a few other enemies that can't bleed. But against most enemies, it does that additional damage effect. Not as good as some of the other skills. I mean, I'd say Overwhelm's better, maybe even Charge, but it is certainly nice to do a little bit extra damage anyway. Finally, Nemesis. The Mabari has become a relentless killer. It gains bonuses to health and health regeneration. I mean, just a nice straight health bonus, basically. May as well take that. And as you can see, at the current level, which is level 19, my Mabari has a total of 265 health. It would be less if I didn't have Nemesis. Not much else to say about it, kind of a weak note to end on, given that it's just a very straightforward basic talent there. And with that, I think we're finished with the warriors. So I hope you found this video interesting, and perhaps you learned something you didn't before, especially about, say, the dog or Xiao's talents, if you haven't taken the time to read them yourself. And certainly some interesting skills here. I will say, you know, it is always good. The warrior is a relatively basic class, mainly dealing with stuns and knockdowns, as opposed to the rogue that uses a bit more trickery with backstabs and the like. But the warrior can be a tank or a damage dealer or a mixture of both, and it does that job very well. And every party really needs a warrior, because otherwise the mages and rogues are much more frail and usually cannot stand up on the front lines nearly as well as a dedicated warrior. But either way, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.